Sorry guys, please. Okay. Need to think more about their own security. Like if you're keeping maybe $100 on your Lightning wallet, your security might not be that important. But if you're starting to keep $1 million on your Lightning wallet, then that's something really you need to think carefully about. And I would say that even with Lightning, kind of like taking over the majority of your commercial transactions, I would still recommend using a cold wallet for your holdings. And if you're running a store, I would still recommend using a cold wallet for all the money that you don't need to necessarily keep in your hot wallet. And I would also keep an eye on channels with peers who are not routing peers. If you don't need to keep money with peers that you don't have to, it represents a kind of an open-ended security risk. So you have this money in channels that is inactive, it can't be used for anything. So this is something people are going to have to start thinking more of as we scale up, as we go into millions of dollars. Another thing that I think that we're seeing with the movement from Lightning, from being an experiment to more of a system that people can integrate into their daily lives, is that we're seeing that reality is unbalanced. So what that means is people who are sending over Lightning are not necessarily sending in a bidirectional way. And in a Lightning channel, if you want to use it infinitely, you need the capital to flow bidirectionally. So once you've depleted the capital in your channel going out, if you want to continue to spend, you need the capital to come back in that same channel. But that doesn't represent the reality of how people do spend. So there's certain types of people who are spenders. They load up their wallet with some money from the chain, and then they spend down that wallet, and then that's it. They can't spend any more, so they're going to have to create a new channel or maybe use Lightning Move. And the same applies to the merchants and exchanges. People are paying to them, and they're not moving a lot of their expenses to the Lightning Network. So what's happening is that their channels are becoming depleted in the inbound direction. So people are paying through the channels, and then they're becoming saturated. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It still represents an aggregation over the naive case of just making a payment on the blockchain. So you can still fit in maybe 10, 100, 1,000 transactions, even if it's completely unidirectional. But it's not as ideal as it could be. And it's representing a cost to the people who are using this that they're having to go to chain more, that they're having to deal with those issues. And one thing that can help somewhat is to move the capital around between your channels. So if you have one channel that is depleted, and if you have one channel that is not depleted, maybe you could move on the Lightning Network the capital around so that you would have both channels being not depleted. But it does not solve fundamental problems of getting overall depleted, because you're just shuffling around your existing liquidity. So it will especially be less helpful once we have multipath payments where you can use multiple channels together. In that case, you'll have more flexibility to receive or send, but you won't be able to fundamentally change the flow of where the capital exists between you and your peers. So this is something that I thought about for a long time. When I was working on the submarine swaps project originally, I thought, we're going to have all these problems. We're going to lose some of the benefits of the chain when we go to the Lightning Network, and it's going to be unfamiliar. And it's going to be, a migration process of figuring this out. So what a submarine swap does is it allows you to go from the chain to Lightning, or from Lightning to the chain. And that's something that can help you with these balance problems. So if you are seeing your channels all fill up because you're a merchant and people are just sending you tons of money or being super successful, you need to get that money to push to the other side of your channels if you want to continue to receive. and but you don't want that money to just be lost. So the submarine swap allows you to use the same principle of that Lightning uses to get your money back on the chain. And on the chain, it's not subject to the same flow restrictions that that are restricted to circular rebalancing. So after I made submarine swaps, I joined Lightning Labs, and at Lightning Labs, we created this product called Lightning Loop. And Lightning Loop is a bit different than what I worked on originally. And the main difference is that it's oriented towards bridging funds out of Lightning, because that is the main issue for people, is that they want to, they're a merchant and they've received so much money that they need to get it back onto an exchange. You need to get it into their cold wallet. Or they're a merchant and they're seeing that their useful channels that are delivering all the sales to them are becoming depleted, and now customers are having more problems paying to them. So that's become the most used feature of Lightning Loop, is to push funds out of Lightning channels so that Lightning channels can continue to be used. And this is a non-custodial service. The whole concept is non-custodial, which I think is pretty important for people to build on it. And I can kind of like give a high-level overview of why it's trust minimized, like how it actually works. What is Loop actually doing? So I have a little diagram at the top here. So what happens when you do a loop and a loop out, where you are using your Lightning funds to pay to an on-chain address? What happens is that you initiate a swap by creating a secret, an unguessable secret. And that's what you do every time you make a Lightning invoice, is that you're making this secret. And then when you make that secret, you take the hash of that secret, the one-way hash of that secret. And in Loop, you give this hash to the server and you say, hey, Loop, here is this hash, and I'm going to lock a payment to you. So I'm going to send you a payment, Loop, and it's going to be locked to this. And on the chain, it's not subject to normal Lightning payment. The receiver doesn't know the secret, and so the Loop server, as the receiver, does not know the secret. So the Loop server can't just take this money because it doesn't know the secret. That's a requirement for Lightning payments, is that the receiver knows the secret, and that's how they can unlock the received Lightning payment. The secret's also called the pre-image. So what the Loop server does is it once it has this hash, once it has this payment that's locked to it, is it says, okay, I've got this money locked to me, and I can see that if I knew the secret, I would be able to take the money, but I don't know the secret. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a on-chain payment back to you, or back to wherever you want, and it's going to actually have the same hash. And this time, if you want the money, you have to present a secret that is corresponding to that hash, and that will allow you to take the money back to yourself. But there's also a clause where maybe you don't reveal the secret. And in that case, then this smart contract is going to time out, and it's going to say, well, now I can take the money back to myself because you never revealed the secret. So in the normal case, the Loop server will continue with the loop to say, okay, here is this on-chain output that you could take. So here are some chain funds that you could take that correspond to the money that you sent to me off the chain. And then the user is going to say, okay, that looks good. I've got some money on the chain that correspond to the outgoing amount, and I will reveal the secret and take the money to my full control without the timeout. And once they do that, once they reveal that secret, that allows the Loop server to say, hey, I've got this incoming payment that's locked to this hash, but now I know the secret, so I can take that money. And so that allows for this trust minimized flow, where there's only these two outcomes. Either the user revealed the secret and they created the secret in the first place, or the whole process times out and the Loop server is able to take back the money. And then there's also a timeout on the other side, where the user can get back their money as well, because the loop server won't hold on to that forever. And this is also basically how Lightning itself works. This is the HPLC concept. That's how we can move funds across multiple hops, because all these hops are using the same concept of this hash time lock effect. And it allows Loop to work over the network. So you don't even have to be connected to Loop. You can connect over the network, and as long as the Loop gets its secret and hash from some peer, that's enough. And this really allows you to spend down your channels. That's what this loop out is doing. Is it allows you to spend down your channels so that you are able to get inbound liquidity, so that you're able to either push out funds that you don't want to be holding in your hot wallet, or you're able to now receive in the opposite direction for future received payments. And the main point here is that you've locked a payment to the Loop server, but you created the secret. You created the pre-image. We don't even know it, so it's impossible for us to take that money. It's like as if we didn't know the private keys. So if you saw an address on the blockchain and it's locked to an address, you can see the public part of it, the address part of it, but you don't know the private key, so you can't take the money. The same thing with the Loop server. That the money that you've sent to us in the first stage is basically, to us, it's as useful as looking on the blockchain and looking at an address. It's only after you take the money, meaning that you reveal the secret, that we're able to take that money. Okay, so what this represents is really a liquidity market. So the Lightning Network works differently than a regular peer-to-peer network that works on altruism, because it requires committing capital to different people in different amounts. So we can't make a peer-to-peer network where everybody has unlimited capital, because Bitcoin is a scarce resource, and there's a cost to holding capital into a hot wallet. And so there's this concept of inbound liquidity. And all inbound liquidity means is that somebody else on the network is holding their money in their hot wallet, and they are holding it in a channel with you. And right now in the Lightning Network, you can't just walk up to somebody and say, I want you to hold some capital in a channel that's assigned to me, because that wouldn't scale. You would have all sorts of people just go and demand capital be locked to them, and there wouldn't be enough capital. The Bitcoin would be too limited. So that's where the market comes in. And the market says, oh, well, let's have a way to recompense people for holding this capital. And we don't want to just have it be a one-time expense, because capital is moving around all the time. We don't want to just say, every time I want to get some capital, I have to go to the blockchain and I have to arrange somebody to create a new channel to me. We want a system that is more efficient than that, and that allows capital to move as much off-chain as possible. So what Loop does is it says, you can come to us if you want inbound liquidity, because we've got some inbound liquidity. We're working on that problem. And you can do this swap with us, where you will trade your off-chain funds, and we will give you on-chain funds. And so we're giving you inbound liquidity, and you're giving us a swap fee. So the Lightning Loop is a paid service. And you also are paying fees to the routing network. So the other people on the chain who are kind of making a similar deal with you, that they're saying, if you move funds in this direction, then you're going to have to pay this amount. And of course, you also have to pay, because submarine swap is half on-chain and half off-chain. You're going to have to pay an on-chain kind of a fee as well to the miners to help move that capital around. So what are you buying in this market? You're buying this inbound liquidity, meaning you can receive payments, which is super important as a merchant. And you're buying another thing, which is that you're buying a lower risk of your hot wallet being compromised. So if you're a merchant who is just receiving money all day, so let's say you're selling coffees, there's no real reason that you need to keep the money in your Lightning channels unless you're making Lightning expenses, but I think we're at an early stage for that. It's like if you have a cash register and your cash register is just filling up all day. Well, at the end of the day, you're going to have to empty out the cash register because you're not making so many payments from the cash register. And having an infinite cash register, like if you're just piling up money on the floor, that's a security risk. So what you're also doing when you are buying inbound liquidity is that you're buying lower risk for yourself. And because we have a Lightning as a flow network, meaning that the capital is only being shuffled between peers, basically this is a peer-to-peer marketplace where you're talking to your peer and you're saying, what if I push the risk over to you? And what are you going to charge me for that? And then we can have a competitive marketplace where people can say, oh, well, I'll charge this amount for this risk. And I think as we see, we'll have a specialization of concerns. So people who are really good at being merchants, they might not really care about being great at security, but there'll be some people who aren't really good at being merchants, but they're really good at running Lightning nodes. And so we will have a marketplace figure out who should be responsible for being the merchants and who should be responsible for carrying the routing, who should be responsible for carrying the risk. It sounds like, oh, fees, I hate fees, I don't want to pay any fees. But I would say that if you look at the current market and if you think about it conceptually, we're not talking about the most gigantic fees here. So if you look, I think a normal routing fee that would probably be on the high end would be 10 basis points, meaning 0.1%. So you could, if you operate a coffee shop that's doing, $500,000 in business a year, you're only paying maybe $500 at that 0.1% in liquidity fees. So it won't break the bank, and this is an open market process to anybody in the entire world. Okay, so there's even more benefits to Lightning Loop that I think we can expand on and that you can use right now. So I talked about a bridge, and in the bridge concept, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the benefits of one system to the other system. So I talked about bringing the concepts of the benefit of the blockchain that doesn't have these flow restrictions. Like you can just send anything to anybody, and as long as it's a sufficient amount, they don't need to have a route, they don't need to have channels set up. So that's a great thing about the blockchain that the submarine swap allows you to do, is it allows you to access that benefit with your Lightning funds. But the reverse is also true. So the Lightning Network has these great properties that you can access using this bridge. So one benefit is that it has a better privacy profile. I'm not saying it's anonymous, but when you send an on-chain transaction, you are literally broadcasting to the entire world where the money is coming from and where the money is going to. And that's just a hard problem from the start to figure out, how do I get privacy out of that? But if you move it through the Lightning Network, we have we don't have a gossip system. We don't have a broadcast system to tell everybody where the money's coming from. So just from the start, it's easier to figure out how to make that more private. And it breaks that traditional link that people are looking at when they're trying to compromise your privacy on the chain. So the money comes from somewhere on the Lightning Network, and then it goes out on the chain, which helps you kind of obscure your UTXOs. So another thing that I think is really beneficial here is that we're still using on-chain transactions to do these loops, but we're getting aggregation benefits. So even if you operate a coffee shop that does a loop out to move all the funds back, even once per day, instead of doing 100 coffee sales as individual transactions on the blockchain, now you are getting similar benefits, but you are only doing maybe one transaction on the blockchain, and even maybe less than that, depending on the type of submarine swap that you do. And then I talked about before, which is that regular, normal blockchain funds, of course, everything is still in smart contracts, but the Lightning as it stands, Lightning smart contracts as it stands today are more difficult to keep cold, to keep super secure, and that's something that most funds don't really need to be hot. They don't need to be in live active channels connected to the network. So that's something that you can access with a submarine swap. Is you can access this cold wallet in both directions. So if you want a submarine swap to go from your Trezor, your cold wallet, or you can arrange with somebody else and say, I'm going to pay you this money on the chain from my cold wallet that I'm keeping super secure, and then you are going to go make that off-chain payment for me. And that's what we call a loop-in, is that we will be responsible for doing the lightning payments and having that lightning hot wallet risk, and you will be able to keep your money just as you've always had it in a secure operation. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is kind of the future of Lightning Loop and the evolution of Lightning Loop as we've moved from alpha to beta. So we recently announced a big upgrade to Lightning Loop, and we've moved the service into a beta service. And the big feature that we've introduced is that we've added this batching concept. And people talk about batching, and it's a little bit hard for me to explain. I think people are very familiar with the idea that if you do batching, that you're getting this chain savings. But I don't know if people exactly understand what it means. What it means is that if you have a transaction and you can attach more outputs that are payments to more addresses that you care about to that transaction, then you don't have to attach a lot of extra data to it. So what you're doing is you're getting kind of like an economy of scale from making a transaction. And batching is, SegWit is something that any wallet can implement to get some improvements, but batching is something that normally only big wallets can implement to get on-chain savings, fee savings, because it requires that you actually care about sending more payments to more people. But that's something exciting that we can offer with Loop, is that we can allow you to join into a batch with other people. So other people who are making on-chain sends, you can share a transaction with them, and you can do it in a way that you don't have to trust a custodian. And that's a service that is live on Lightning Loop today. You can run that. There's a big upcoming feature in LND, which is that we're going to allow multipath payments. And when we allow multipath sends in LND, we're going to allow you to actually batch major changes in all of your channels. Like even if you have 100 channels, we're going to allow you to use all of those 100 channels to make a payment. And what that means for Lightning Loop is that you can loop out, instead of just doing one channel, instead of rebalancing one channel and that being one on-chain transaction or one output, it's going to be 100 channels, or as many channels as you would like, as there is routing capacity for, and that is still going to map into one on-chain transaction. So that can be more efficient than even splicing or lots of other possible formulations for how to do liquidity rebalancing for maintenance on the Lightning Network. And even into the farther future, there's this concept where we can create multi-party channels. And normally the problem with multi-party channels is that as you add more participants to the multi-party channel, you get the risk that one of them is going to disappear or not be active. And whenever you have a Lightning channel and one peer is not available to sign, then the channel is not usable. But what we can do with Loop is we can make these temporary multi-party channels, and that allows us to even get rid of a lot of the on-chain overhead that we have today with the way that submarine swaps work. We can get rid of HTLCs, and once we have Schnorr and Taproot, assuming that soft fork is deployed, then we can fold together the signatures of all the different parties in a swap, and we can say that only represents one signature, one public key, which adds additional privacy, and it also drastically improves the price of a swap. And I've done some other presentations on the math of this, but how it works out, even without multi-party payments, or multi-path payments, is that you can be 5 times more efficient with your chain usage in the ideal scenario of using these temporary multi-party channels. And how does that work out? So instead of spending $5 on a transaction, you can switch to using this theoretical future super batch loop, and instead of spending $5, you would spend $1. Which can make it very attractive to people who are trying to send a bunch of money on the chain. And even if you're not, and even if this is only applying to people who really need to do a bunch of chain sends, it's lowering the cost for everybody because we're using the on-chain resources more efficiently. So Lightning Loop is something that you can try out today. It's an API. You can build your own client completely. It's a trust minimized API, so that's something that you can build. You can integrate into your application, and we also have a reference client implementation. Ride the Lightning is working on an integration. If you're a Ride the Lightning user, there's a PR for a Joule if you're a Joule user, or you can just go to this website lightning.engineering/loop, and you can download and get involved in trying it out. And it also works on testnet if you want to try it out on testnet. Okay, that's all I have. I think I'll go to the YouTube.
All right. Thank you, Alex. This was awesome. And we're going to take some questions in a moment. Bear with me for 10 seconds. So let's see. Can Alex hear us right now? I'll just wait for Alex to let me know if he can hear us. One, three. Okay, guys. So we have some sound trouble with some audio problems with Alex. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna allow you to ask questions, and you should try to keep them very short because we're gonna type them over to Alex so he can answer. So please try to have short questions, and we'll give it a shot. JCS face. You can
Okay,
start.
so my question is one of the questions I get a lot from people that don't understand Lightning. I know you said you have to make the question short. The short version of the question is, what do you think is let's say the fees were $100 per transaction. What do you think is as cheap as we could get it per person in a world where the network was very busy and people didn't want to pay obviously $100 to open a channel?
Okay, so the question is, let's say that fees go up to $100 per transaction. What's the cheapest that we can open channels? What the cheapest price we can open channels at? So one interesting thing about Lightning Loop is that the product of a loop could actually be a new channel opening. So that 5x rule still applies. So let's say that you're trying to open a channel and the price was $100. Well, you can still receive the aggregation benefit and instead open your channel for $20. And the thing is that even if other people will do that, that's bringing down the cost for everybody. And that's only one optimization. There's other optimizations that we could make through soft forks and also through different channel constructions. So another way that we could have for a channel is that you could share a channel with other people. You could say that it's not just a channel for one person; it's a channel maybe for 10 people. So then we've cut this down, right? We said, okay, we started with a $100 transaction that included 2 inputs and 2 outputs, and that was a lot of data. So we cut it down to just 1 output using Lightning Loop, and now we're down to $20. And then we went to 20 other people and we said, well, let's make sure that we have good liveness guarantees, and then maybe we have some soft fork to figure out what happens if there is an assigner. And we've come up with some kind of futuristic channel thing. So we've shared the channel between 20 people. So now we've only paid $1 to open this channel, and the cost of going up incentivizes everybody to try to figure out how can we just do it as cheap as possible, and then it also incentivizes you to use the channel for a long time. So already we have channels that are open for 9 months on average. That's even in the testing phase when channels are closing due to bugs and stuff. And even at super cheap fees where you're not even really incentivized to keep your channel open that long. I think we can have a channel that is easily open for an entire year, and maybe you're spending $1 to $20 on it, even in the worst, even in a case like $100 per transaction.
can I go ahead and ask a question?
Okay, great. So I'm gonna take the next question. Again, please keep it short and quick. And let's see, Walkswing, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me, Udi?
Yeah.
Yes, so my question is just what's the anonymity set of the on-chain component of Lightning Loop currently, and what will it be after Taproot and Schnorr, ideally?
Okay, so the question is, what's the anonymity set of concurrent Lightning Loop, and what would it be under Schnorr and Taproot? So kind of what I described earlier about the privacy benefits. There's all sorts of ways to look at privacy. So the starting way that I would look at it is what's the privacy set of what's the anonymity set of Lightning itself, and you want a huge anonymity set, and you want an anonymity set that is a quality set. You don't want to be tied up with people who you could just be categorized along with. You want to have it be very diverse so that it's difficult to discriminate against you. And I think that the anonymity set for Lightning as it currently stands is actually very high quality, because there's a lot of different types of people using it, and it's not just a certain category of people. And technically speaking, what's happening when you're doing a Lightning Loop is that you're paying us over the Lightning Network. So depending on how you're doing that payment, how you're running your node, all that's being seen from a privacy perspective is that there's this payment coming in from the Lightning Network, and it's not gossip to everybody in the world.
And let's see, Walkswing.
Someone from the Lightning Network, paid us, and
Hi, can you hear me, Udi?
that's a pretty good story. There's another aspect to the Lightning Loop as far as privacy goes, which is that once you do that payment, you're spending it on chain, and you're doing it in kind of a way that can be seen visibly. So an HTLC will go to chain, and it's going to be an unusual type of HTLC. So you'll be like grouped in with all the other people who are using Lightning Loop. And that's not a huge number of people. I mean, it's certainly lower than the Lightning Network itself, and it's much lower than the overall set of sends that are being sent around. And it was mentioned, like, okay, what is it going to be like under Schnorr and Taproot? And that's something that I kind of touched on before, which is that right now it's kind of visible on the chain to see that these loops are happening. So even though you don't have that connection from the input to the output, you can still see that this output is like an unusual type of output. And that's something that we can use Schnorr and Taproot. Even potentially we can use ECDSA, it's just more difficult. But that's something that we can do with Schnorr, is that we can make a new type of multi-party channel construction, where when you execute the loop, it actually doesn't even look much different than any other kind of transaction on the chain. And then the only privacy hole in that case is the service provider itself. I guess, and the other benefit from Schnorr that is expected is that Lightning channels themselves would become more private, because instead of being obviously a channel with 2 of 2 multisig, they would just look like any normal send, any normal like pay to public key hash type of send.
Okay, so guys, I'm gonna take one last question because the delay we have between us and Alex is pretty difficult. So I'm gonna take one last question. Please make it short. Jonathan, you're up.
Hi, I wanted to know a little bit about the organization. How many people are working on this full time? Have you received outside funding, and what's your, I guess, goal or definition of success? It's really still very early with Lightning Network, so it's interesting to see the ecosystem that's being built around it. At this stage of where we're at, how do you define success?
Okay, so the question is from Jonathan. How many people are working full-time on Lightning? And is there outside funding? And what are the goals, or how would Lightning or Loop be defined successful? Okay, so how many people are working full-time on Lightning? Well, there's two parts to that. One part is, maybe there's three parts. Lightning, generally, as it stands right now, is built on Bitcoin. And how many people are working on Bitcoin? Lots of people. Like I'd say there's, Square Crypto, and there's Blockstream has contributions, and all the people who, are building implementations, who are submitting patches and like feedback upstream to the Bitcoin protocol. There is Lightning protocol development. That's one big part of Lightning development, and I would say there's a few major teams and then some less large teams. So that might be like 20 people, 25 people working on the protocol side of things, to be generous. And as far as the rest of development of Lightning, I think one super important thing that we need to think about is that it's not just a protocol and you build a protocol and then that's it. The protocol is more like a blueprints. You then still need to build out you have to do the engineering, you have to build out all the tools, you have to make this thing useful by making great apps, by making it usable for people. And for that, I would say there's a much larger set of developers. I think certainly 100, and if you look on the LND Slack, we have thousands of people who join the Slack. And it's not just developers, it's also all the people who are thinking of new ideas and creating content. So I would say thousands of people are working on it. I don't know how many full-time, but probably a good size number, although it's not gigantic. And the question is, is there outside funding? Well, there's no token here. There's no, Lightning Foundation that, printed up an ICO. So the funding is really from people who are expecting that this is a network that's going to grow and going to be useful to people, and that usefulness is going to translate into revenue. It's going to mean that there's new businesses built on this platform, and that's the kind of funding that we're at. That's really chasing utility and revenue in the shorter terms. And it's not just airdrop money. It's not just printing money to try to keep this thing going and get more people on board. It's people trying to make this a good solution for people's problems. And that's how I would also describe Lightning and Loop as successful. I wouldn't say, it necessarily needs to be used in one way or another way, except that we want to solve people's problems. So if it's successful, I think we will be, solving tons and tons of problems, and that it will be sustainable. That the people who are right now depending on funding to keep the development going, that they are using the revenue of all the useful services that they're able to provide to keep going. And Loop specifically, also we need to have sufficient volume in order to deliver those big batching benefits. So there's actually just like a plate number that we need to get. Yeah, so that's part of why I'm So this is my first VR chat, so that was really great to be here. Thanks for all the questions, really good questions, and thanks.
Okay, that was fun. Thanks a lot for Alex for being with us. Apologies for the delay, but other than that, this was really great. I really enjoyed this talk, and thank you for coming. And here's what's coming next. So in about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm gonna send a message on our Telegram chat, which is again VR Bitcoin. It's t.me/VR Bitcoin for our Telegram chat. And I'm gonna send a message there for our after party on VRchat, which is another app that you can use. That's a little like more fun and freeform. Those of you who don't have it and want to stay here, you can stay here if you want. I'm gonna unmute everyone. But thanks a lot for coming. And remember that we have another event on Tuesday, which is the Socratic Seminar. This is pretty awesome. If you've never been to a Socratic Seminar before, you definitely should come this time. We're gonna have both of the hosts for the Socratic Seminar live in VR with VR headsets standing with us. It's not gonna be with video, so it's gonna be pretty special. Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. You can speak now.
Yay.
Hey,
All right.
awesome.
We have voice.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thanks, Udi.
How was it today? Was everyone able to join?
Some people seem to have had some problems, but it's like most came. I mean, it's by far the largest meetup we've had so far. So that's
Okay. How many were in? Do you know that?
how many what?
How many were in? So how many people were in?
About 50.
50. Okay,
Oh.
that's quite good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Could this
What's the
actually go
maximum?
above 50?
Please go
Look at me,
above
Rudy.
50.
Yeah, could it go above 50?
Yeah, it's so the capacity of this room is 80, and there is a way if we kind of coordinate with the Altspace team ahead of time. There's a way to allow more people. They kind of shard it like Ethereum is supposed to be sharded, but for real. Yeah, so it's possible. I didn't try it yet. They call it front row.
Oh, okay, that'd be pretty cool.
Udi,
Yeah.
hey, so for the Socratic seminar, sometimes people from the audience want to share or say something. Do we want to do like the raise hand feature throughout the whole time that we're doing the presentation?
I mean, we can consider that. I was thinking yes, because I don't know, because at least when I do like physical Socratic seminars, then people like physical.
Can you guys hear me? Oh. Hello? Can anybody hear me? Hello, hello.
There you go.
You can
Okay.
see.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can see
yeah. You
the-
light up. Yeah, you light
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Does
So
it,
that's on
can
one
you tell, like,
indicator.
if there's a person talking, what does it look like?
Okay,
Like
so
when I'm talking.
you're Dylan, so I see your mouth opening and closing when you're talking.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Gotcha.
So
have you played a lot of these different VR games then?
I played VRchat. We were just Rosa and I were just over in Decentraland before this. She does DJing for a lot of different platforms. So she just did a set over in Decentraland, and she also does DJing in Sidewave Space, and we're like, I'm based in OpenSim. I have 2 simulated regions in Kitely.com, which is the biggest commercial OpenSim hosting company. But there's there's actually hundreds of OpenSim grids, and they all get connected by what we call the hypergrid. So it's like the internet of VR. And then there's Second Life, which is, so OpenSim is an open sourced version of Second Life. Second Life is owned by Linden Lab, and they're a walled garden. So you can't move people or content out of there. You can upload stuff. OpenSim is a lot more open, so you can upload content to one grid, move it to another. And so, like, I create a lot of content and I sell it on the Kitely marketplace.
All right,
and
you
they
guys
can
should be able to
deliver
hear
it
me
to
now.
anybody all over on any grid that's connected to the hypergrid.
Awesome.
Can receive the content that's sold on the Kitely marketplace. So
You're the man,
it's a
Michael.
good size.
Thank you for
Wow,
taking
you
over
just
for me,
kind of
buddy.
blown my
Welcome,
mind,
you
man.
guys. Yeah,
Hey,
he's
man.
mind blowing. I love talking to him earlier. The reason why you guys couldn't hear me, I was live streaming from my headset. I didn't realize I was also live streaming from my computer, but my computer mic wasn't detecting me talking, so you guys couldn't hear me. But glad you guys stayed. I was trying to see if I can fit this room to full capacity. No wonder you guys couldn't hear me in the event. I believe this world can hit 80 people. I'm really trying to test the limits of it and get more people to fill in here. The last world we were in for his event, the cap we got to was 45. I want to be able to stretch that cap all the way up to 80 and then duplicate the world. So I made this world and I can keep making as many of them as I want. And now I know what that kid was talking about. That white wall is flickering. I need to fix that. Anyway, yeah, I did all of this in here and I'm going to make it multiple rooms. So I'm Jerome from bitsandtokens.com. We are a blockchain media company. We film all sorts of events. I've been to plenty of conferences, and now I decided I want to do a virtual conference area. So, and there's the virtual conference room I've been building over the last couple of days. I'm going to make a blockchain museum in there, an esports arena in there, so we can play like blockchain games, stuff like that, VR, PC games, as well as a room for podcasts. Yes, you did see me doing a podcast. Every Tuesday we do a VR podcast. So I'm going to hopefully have it in here by next Tuesday.
Oh, amazing. Okay, cool. Are you putting like an open invitation? So you had like a bunch of other invites that were coming up on my feed when I was looking at it earlier.
Yeah, I put it in the group chat all the time, and I'm going to keep making more and more events. I actually just got connected with Luke Kramer from Crypto Mondays, and I'm going to be doing VR Crypto Mondays in here starting this Monday.
Yeah, cool. All right. I saw it was like midday or something, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Amazing, man. Okay, so I have to go back to what you were saying before, Michael. You were telling me that you were like making stuff and then selling it in online marketplaces, right?
Yeah. So I use Blender, which is a 3D modeling application. You can use anything from like Maya to 3ds and so forth. And so in OpenSim, what you do is you export from whatever 3D modeling app you've got to the Collada file format, and then you can upload the Collada files into OpenSim, and so those are meshes. So I make spaceships, I make tables and chairs and lights and buildings, and you can do avatar shape meshes and so forth that are rigged. Anything you see you can create, and so once you've uploaded it, then you can put that on the marketplace for, like on Kitely.com, they have a marketplace. Second Life also has a marketplace for Second Life, and so you can then sell your content there, either for Kitely credits which are not fungible, or for dollars via PayPal. They haven't adopted using cryptocurrency for payments there yet, but there's some other grids on the hypergrid that are working on that.
Oh, there are really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's.
I mean, it seems like a perfect application for like Bitcoin or something, right?
Oh yeah. So Decentraland is based on blockchain, and they adopted a lot of ideas that I've written about for years now, and so they've got the Mana cryptocurrency and blockchain, and so you can create content. I can make it in Blender. You can export it on the GTL. Is it the GTLF, Rosa? Is that the file format? But that's like a newer 3D content file format, and you can upload that into Decentraland, and so you can sell content in Decentraland and earn mana for that. And the mana is fully fungible. You can trade that for Bitcoin or fiat or whatever.
Amazing, man. And so, like, let's say you make one of these spaceships or something, right? Then you upload it onto the OpenSim, and you're trying to sell it. Like, is it you can sell one spaceship, or you can just like continue to replicate it and continue to sell it on and on and on? How does that work?
So, like, I've got all my content is in. We have a thing called a suitcase, which is your inventory. And so I just you have folders in your inventory, and so you put the different items that you want. You can organize it like any kind of file system. And so then you go to in Kitely, you go to the Kitely website side, and you go to your My Marketplace, and you say I want to create a new product, and it pops up a window, and you go through your inventory, and you can pick the item in your inventory you want to put on sale. And so the items that you create, you can have different permissions on them. So you can have for the next owner. So you can make it no copy or copyable. You can make it modifiable or not modifiable. And you can make it transferable or not transferable. So like I want people to buy my stuff but not be able to resell it to others. So I make it but they can make as many copies of what they buy from me as they want for wherever they use it. So I set my perms to modify and copy, but no transfer. So then when they buy it on the marketplace of Kitely, it gets delivered to their avatar suitcase, and they can res as many copies of it as they want. Now, if I make it no copy, then they just get one copy, and they've got to res that. But and when you make something copyable, it automatically becomes transferable. So that's like a real item where you can't where the person who buys it can't duplicate it. But because I'm the creator, I can sell as many copies of it as I want.
Right. So why do you make it so that it's non-transferable then?
Well, that's if you can make it fully what we call fully permed, where it's modifiable, copyable, and transferable. And that's essentially, that's like, we call that fully open sourced. And so with that situation, you can't, there's only a limited amount of time you can make any money for it because once you've given a full perms version to somebody else, they can then distribute it for free, and you've got no marketplace, so you can't make any money doing what you're doing.
Okay, but you could make it like transferable but not copyable, which would mean that they could use it and they could sell it on to somebody else, but they couldn't copy it to a bunch of other ones to be able to sell those copies, right?
Right. So once they transfer it to somebody else, that disappears from their own inventory. So it's like a discrete no copy item. And so once they sell it to somebody else, it leaves their inventory and goes to that other person's inventory.
How interesting. So it's almost like a non-fungible token, kind of.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's that, Rosa?
Very cool.
I told you about the option If you want to give a gift to other, you can choose it when you buy at marketplace. And if you upload your content, you can choose to export to others world.
Yeah. So what she's saying is that you can, like with the Kitely Marketplace, like she could buy, and Rosa does this all the time. She's always buying me clothes on the Kitely Marketplace for my avatar, and because I like my avatar the way I like it, I never wear them. But
funny how the real world starts to bleed into the virtual one, right? Oh, cool. So if you made something which was like, say, transferable but not copyable, and you sold it to somebody, and then they sold it on to somebody else, would those properties that you gave it persist beyond them transferring it to somebody else, or could they then set new properties for it when they transfer it on?
Only the creator can set the permissions, unless you make it. If you make it full perms, if you make it
then
full
whatever.
copy, then anybody can change those because it's fully permed.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. I'm gonna have a difficult time remembering all this stuff, so I'm trying to write it down so I can like go and like have a bit of a Google afterwards.
Yeah. So after this thing at 4:00, Rose and I will be at Kitely.com. They have a community meeting at 1 p.m. Pacific time every Sunday, and then a couple hours after that, at 4 p.m. Pacific, I do a class teaching people how to use Blender and basically I use a media screen to share my screen so people can see what I'm doing in Blender.
Wow, cool.
So it's for people that want to learn to use that. And I've got to actually do some updating because the application I was using for that called ScreenLeap has updated recently, and maybe I need to find a new provider for the screen sharing. So I'm looking at using Mixer.com to do that in the future.
Very interesting. So how much money can you actually make selling these digital assets?
Depends upon how much demand. I mean, I usually just make enough to pay for my server fees, so I just keep everything that my two simulators or those get, Rosa makes money DJing from tips and so forth, so that's another way you can get paid. Is she goes and does a DJ set and she reses out a tip jar wherever she's performing, and so people can pay the tip jar either Kitely credits or they can pay it, and it gives them a link to go to PayPal and give her a tip via PayPal, and so she makes money that way. Yeah. So she has an app called Virtual DJ, and that streams into a Shoutcast server, and so Shoutcast server has a URL, and you can, in OpenSim and Second Life, on whatever parcel or virtual land you're on, there's some parcel settings where you can put either a media or a sound stream URL on that, and so if it's a sound stream, then basically that's the music. So she puts her Shoutcast server URL there, and as long as she's streaming music to the Shoutcast server, anybody that's on that land parcel can hear that. So that's how you do a DJ event. Sorry.
Nice. How many people do you get normally coming to those kind of things, Rosa?
It depends of the game and it depends of the...
All right, guys, let's start heading over towards VRchat. How many people are going to be able to head over there?
What? Sorry?
I'm going to head over there now. Yeah.
Same here.
To where?
I'm going to be filming that as well, and I'll have Annalise be there.
Yeah, Yuri's place.
So VRchat?
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to... I can't join because I don't have enough... yeah, my headset kind of sucks.
Wrong headset. Yeah.
Oh, I just use the desktop version of. You can use the desktop version.
Do you have a desktop or computer?
Yeah.
Do you know?
You just go to Steam and install VRchat.
Yeah, I think it's Windows only,
Yeah,
right?
so-
I only have my MacBook Pro at the moment, which kind of sucks.
That makes sense.
So
I'll be
I
live
could
streaming
set
it
up
for
like
you
a
if
virtual
you
bot.
follow my YouTube channel, Blockchain Universe, UNIVRSE.
Yeah, like okay, cool.
It's in the group
You
chat.
have okay, cool.
Is it okay?
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
And if you have any
Next
questions, just drop it in the YouTube channel, and I'll ask questions and whatnot for you.
Yeah, Rosa, you.
Okay, cool.
Rosa
Appreciate that,
is
man.
very buzzy.
For sure, buddy. You guys are welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. I'm gonna continue building onto this world. If you guys have any ideas, just let me know.
For sure, will do. See you, man.
Later,
Thanks for
guys.
having us.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too,
All
guys.
right,
I hope to
Rosa.
see you around again soon.
Rosa, let's go to VR chat.
Latest
and
on
go to
Tuesday,
this,
I guess.
The Yuri's
See you,
event.
Dylan.
Oh,
Bye.
sorry, you gotta
See
get there.
you. See you,
Okay,
man.
hon.
See you guys. Good to meet
See
you.
you,
all.
Michael. Yeah, you too.